Oh, I just filmed this whole video and I forgot to turn my microphone on. It is not the first time and it probably won't be the last. So let's talk about Leviticus chapter 10 again. There's a free PDF with all this information on it down in the description if you want it. Leviticus chapter 10, probably the most famous chapter in the book of Leviticus because it contains an important story. But first, before we get to that, let's talk about when these events happened. We know that the tabernacle had been erected at this point, so this is about a year after the Israelites left slavery in Egypt. So this would be approximately 1490 BC. Our definition section, which could probably go as our characters section for this one, we're just going to talk about the four sons of Aaron who are going to be important to the events here. So Aaron was the high priest, and he had four sons who served under him as priests. Their names were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. So now moving over into our outline, verses 1 through 7, the Lord kills Nadab and Abihu. So Nadab and Abihu, they entered the tabernacle and they offered an incense sacrifice to the Lord. But God was displeased with their actions because they, quote, offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. Fire then came out from the Lord when they had done this and killed Aaron's two sons. Moses asked a couple of his cousins, their names were Mishael and Eliphaz, to go into the tabernacle to get the bodies of Nadab and Abihu and to take them outside of the camp. And Aaron and the other priests were forbidden from mourning the death of these two boys publicly. So these are Aaron's sons, but he wasn't allowed to mourn, and him and his sons were told to remain at the tabernacle. And then in verses 12 through 20, Moses speaks to Aaron. Moses reminded Aaron and his sons to complete the daily sacrifices that they were supposed to offer that day because they certainly didn't want to disrespect God more than had already been done. Moses was angry with two of Aaron's sons because they hadn't completed the sin offering by eating the meat from the goat that was offered. But Aaron told Moses that he didn't think that it was going to be appropriate for them to finish the sin offering because of the sins that had been done in the tabernacle that day and the events that had unfolded. And when Moses heard this, he agreed that Aaron was probably right. So that is Leviticus chapter 10, a story that's worth knowing because there's important lessons that we need to take from it about respecting God, worshiping him correctly, reverencing him. But here's another application to think about. Do you think that God overreacted in killing Nadab and Abihu? I've heard several people suggest that, this sin wasn't that big of a deal. What did they do? Quote, offered unauthorized fire, right? It seems like this was a little bit dramatic by God. But maybe the problem is that we tend to underreact to unholiness. In my experience, people tend to downplay the holiness of God by downplaying the seriousness of their sins, or by assuming that sin just isn't that big of a deal now that Jesus has died for us. We don't take God's holiness seriously enough. Yes, he is our Father. Yes, we have a relationship with him, but our closeness to him doesn't mean that he hates sin any less than he did back here in Leviticus chapter 10. It's not as if God is more comfortable with our sins now that grace has been extended to us through Jesus. If we aren't careful, we can fall into the trap of assuming our sins aren't serious because we, in our failings, in our brokenness, in our sinfulness, in our weakness, give Jesus' grace a chance to abound. We can fall into the same error that Paul has to address to the Romans in chapter 6, verses 1 and 2.